Salut les gars! Bon, on se retrouve sur un autre jeu. Un nouveau jeu que je viens de télécharger et on va le tester ensemble, quoi. Avez-vous déjà joué à The Stanley Parable? Non. Donc du coup, voilà. Déplacez le curseur jusqu'à ce que l'ordinateur soit à peine visible. Non, bon. Bon. Vous voyez encore les gars? Moi je vois encore un perso. On va mettre là. Mhm. Entrez l'heure actuelle. Alors, il est 15h31. Ah, d'accord. Ah, du coup, je mets 3. Maintenant, on est l'après-midi. 3h32 de l'après-midi. 32. Ouais, voilà, confirmé. Les paramètres d'accessibilité sont accessibles depuis le menu principal. Ok. Donc, chargement. Ok. Vous jouez à The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
This is the story of a man
C'est
named
l'histoire d'un homme
Stanley.
appelé Stanley.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building
Stanley
where
travaillait
he
pour
was
une entreprise
employee
installée
number
dans un grand immeuble où
427.
il était employé
Employee number 427's
427.
job was
Le
simple.
travail de
He
l'employé
sat at his desk
427
in
était
room
simple. Il devait s'asseoir
427
derrière son
and he pushed
ordinateur
buttons
du
on a
bureau
keyboard.
427 et appuyait sur
Orders
des touches
came
de
to
son
him through a
clavier.
monitor on his
Les
desk,
instructions lui
telling him
parvenaient.
what buttons to push, how
Il
long
savait
to push them,
quand, quelles
and
touches
in
sont
what
forcées,
order.
pour quelle
This is what
durée,
employee
dans quel ordre.
427 did
L'employé
every day,
427 faisait
every
exactement la
month
même chose
of every
jour
year.
après jour,
And although
mois
others
après
might
mois
have
et année
considered
après
it
année.
soul-rending,
Certains y
Stanley
verraient,
relished every moment
voilà.
that the orders
Mais
came.
Stanley adorait
Though he had been
ce
made
fragile
exactly
instant
for this
où les
job,
instructions lui apparaissaient et il se
Stanley
sentait.
was happy.
Ouais. En gros, Stanley était heureux dans
And
son
then one
travail.
day, something very
Soudain, un jour,
peculiar happened.
survint un événement
Something that
très
would
curieux.
forever change
Un
Stanley.
événement qui
Something he would
changera
never quite
Stanley à
forget.
jamais. Un événement qu'il ne
He had
pourra
been at
jamais
his
oublier.
desk for nearly an
Il était
hour
assis à
when he
son bureau
realized that
depuis
not
presque une heure.
one
J'ai
single order
réalisé
had
qu'une
arrived
seule
on the monitor
instruction
for him to
lui était
follow. No one
parvenue à
had showed
l'écran.
up to give him
Personne n'était
instructions,
venu le
call a
voir pour lui
meeting,
donner des
or
ordres,
even say
l'inviter à
hi.
une réunion, ni
Never
même
in
le
all
saluer.
his years at the
Durant
company
toutes ces années
had
dans
this happened,
l'entreprise, il n'a
this
jamais fait
complete isolation.
l'expérience d'un tel silence
Something
autour de
was
lui.
very clearly wrong.
Assurément, quelque chose
Shocked,
n'allait pas.
frozen
Ok,
solid, Stanley
et
found
comme
himself unable to
alourdi
move for
par
the longest
l'effroi,
time. But as he came
Stanley
to
fut
his wits and
incapable de se
regained his
lever. Quand
senses,
enfin il
he got up
retrouva
from
ses
his
esprits,
desk and
il se
stepped
leva
out
de
of
sa
his
chaise et
office.
sortit de son bureau. Hmm. Ok. Ah oui, mais on prend son rôle directement. Bien sûr, on voit qu'il y a son PC et tout. Ok. 429, 428.
All of his co-workers were
Tous
gone.
ses collègues avaient
What could it
disparu.
mean?
Mais pourquoi?
Stanley decided to
Merde.
go to the meeting room.
Stanley
Perhaps he
décida
had
de se
simply
rendre dans la
missed a
salle de
memo.
réunion. Il avait peut-être simplement raté une réunion. La salle de réunion, elle est où d'ailleurs? Faut que je découvre un peu l'endroit, hein, parce que... C'est là? Non, pas là. Alors, je connais pas du tout. Ah, on peut s'accroupir. Ça me fait un peu peur de pouvoir s'accroupir.
Stanley went around touching every little
Stanley
thing
se
in the
mit à
office,
toucher
but it
tous les
didn't make a
objets.
single
Mais
difference.
cela n'a
Nor
pas le
did it
moindre
advance the
effet.
story in any way.
Pas plus que... Ah, je peux ouvrir cette porte. Écoute, quand on appuie sur A, ça fait un bruit comme si on appuie sur un clavier.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the
Il
door on
décida de
his left.
s'engouffrer dans celle de gauche. Et si je vous écoute pas, je vais dans celle de droite.
This was not the correct way to the
Ce n'était
meeting
pas la
room,
bonne
and
façon de se
Stanley knew it
rendre à la salle de
perfectly well.
réunion et Stanley
Perhaps he
était
wanted to
parfaitement.
stop by the employee
Peut-être qu'il
lounge
voulait
first,
d'abord
just to admire
passer
it.
par la salle de pause pour l'admirer. Il y a une salle de pause ici. Oh,
Yes,
voilà
truly
une
a
salle
room worth admiring.
véritablement
It had really
admirable.
been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Mais en fait, personnellement, je veux bien retourner. Ah, retourner en arrière. Je peux pas ouvrir ici? Ah, faut trouver une carte. Euh...
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten
Écoute,
off on the
Stanley, nous
wrong
sommes
foot
peut-être
here.
partis du mauvais
I'm
pied.
not your enemy, really, I'm
Je ne suis
not.
pas votre
I
ennemi,
realize that
vraiment pas.
investing your
Je
trust in
comprends
someone
que
else can
cela
be
puisse être
difficult, but the
difficile
fact
de faire
is that the
confiance.
story has been about
Mais le fait
nothing
que
but you
depuis tout ce temps,
all this
cette histoire ne
time.
concerne que vous.
There's someone you've been neglecting,
Il y a
Stanley.
quelqu'un que vous négligez,
Someone you've
Stanley.
forgotten
Quelqu'un que
about.
vous avez oublié.
Please, stop
S'il vous
trying to
plaît,
make
arrêtez
every
de
decision
prendre
by
toutes les
yourself.
décisions
Now,
tout seul.
I'm not asking for me,
Je
I'm
ne le vous
asking for
demande pas pour
her.
moi, mais pour elle. Comment ça pour elle?
This is
C'est
it,
qui elle?
Stanley. Your chance to
La voilà
redeem
enfin,
yourself,
Stanley. Votre
to
chance de
put
vous
your
racheter.
work aside,
Votre chance
to let
d'oublier votre
her
travail
back
pour
into
la
your
ramener
life.
dans votre vie.
She's been waiting.
Elle attend. De qui? Mon ex? Ah, c'est... Oh,
That's her, Stanley.
c'est elle. Allô? C'est qui? Quoi?
Oh, Stanley, is that you?
Oh,
Hold
Stanley,
on,
c'est
sweetie.
toi?
Sorry to keep you
Désolée,
waiting.
mon trésor.
I'm just pulling
Je
a
dois te
fryer
faire
out of the
attendre.
oven.
Je sors le pas du four.
All right.
Ok, je finis.
Okay, there we go. All right, now,
C'est bon.
I want you to come in and
Je
tell me
veux que
all
tu
about
rentres
your
et
day.
que tu me racontes ta journée de travail.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Je leur découvre.
This is a very sad
C'est
story about the
l'histoire très
death of
triste
a
de la
man
mort
named
d'un homme
Stanley.
appelé Stanley. Quoi? Attends, je suis mort ici?
Stanley is quite a boring fellow.
Est un type
He
plutôt
has a job
ennuyeux.
that
Il a
demands
un
nothing of him,
travail
and
qui ne
every
lui
button that he
demande rien.
pushes is a
Chaque
reminder
tour
of
sur
the
lequel il
inconsequential
appuie
nature of his
lui
existence.
rappelle sa nature désitant de son existence.
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing
Appuyer
exactly
sur
what he's told to
des
do.
touches à faire
Now he's
exactement ce
pushing a
qu'on lui demande.
button. Now
Il appuie
he's
sur une
eating
touche
lunch.
là, il mange son
Now he's
déjeuner.
going home. Now
Là, il
he's
rentre
coming
chez
back to
lui, là, il
work.
revient au
One might
travail.
even feel sorry for him, except that he's
D'aucuns
chosen
pourraient
this
se
life.
désoler pour lui.
But in his mind, in his
Dans
mind,
sa
he can
tête,
go
dans
on
sa tête, il
fantastic
peut vivre des
adventures.
aventures
From behind his
fantastiques.
desk,
Et là, son
Stanley
bureau,
dreamed of wild
Stanley
expeditions
rêvait
into the
des expéditions
unknown,
incroyables vers l'inconnu,
fantastic
de découvertes
discoveries of new
merveilleuses
lands.
sur de
It was
nouveaux
wonderful.
territoires. C'était
And each
formidable.
day that he
À
returned to
chaque jour
work was a
où
reminder
il
that none of
retournait
it would
au
ever happen to
travail, il
him.
lui rappelait que tout cela n'était pas possible.
And so he began to fantasize about his own
C'est ainsi
job.
qu'il commença à
First,
rêver
he
de son propre
imagined that
travail.
one day
Tout
while at
d'abord,
work,
il
he
imaginait
stepped
être
out
toujours
from
au
his desk
travail,
to
il se
realize
lèverait
that
de son
all of his
bureau et se
co-workers,
rendait
his
compte
boss,
que tous ses collègues,
everyone
son
in the
chef,
building had suddenly
tout le monde
vanished
du
off the
bâtiment avait
face of the
disparu de la
earth.
face de la
The
terre.
thought excited him terribly.
Cette pensée l'emplit de folie.
So he went further.
Alors, elle
He
continue à
imagined that he
imaginer
came to
qu'il
two
se
open
trouvait
doors
devant deux
and that he
portes
could go through
ouvertes
either.
et qu'il pouvait
At
franchir
last,
l'une ou l'autre. Un
choice.
choix.
It
Enfin,
barely even mattered what lay
ce qui se
behind each
trouvait derrière
door.
ces portes
The
leur
mere
importait peu.
thought that his
Le simple
decisions would
fait que
mean
ces
something was
décisions
almost
pouvaient
too
avoir une
wonderful to
importance
behold.
était presque imaginable.
As he wandered through this fantasy world,
Tandis
he
qu'il
began to fill it with many
errait
possible
dans ce monde
paths and
imaginaire, il se mit
destinations.
à remplir de
Down one
nombreux
path lay
chemins.
an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the
Il
Stanley
l'appela
Parable.
The Stanley Parable.
It was such a wonderful
C'était
fantasy,
un
and
rêve
so in his
merveilleux.
head, he
Ensuite, dans sa
relived it
tête,
again,
il le
and
vécut à
then
nouveau.
again, and
Et encore,
again,
et encore,
over and
sans
over,
s'arrêter.
wishing beyond hope that it would never
Il
end,
espérant
that he might
que tout
always
sera
feel
encore
this
qu'il ne
free.
devrait jamais.
Surely there's an answer down some new path.
La réponse
Mustn't there be?
trouvée
Perhaps
sûrement
if he
au
played
bout d'un
just
autre
one
chemin.
more time.
Peut-être celui qu'il fait que jouer.
But there is no answer. How
Il
could
n'a
there
pas de
possibly be?
réponse.
In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he
Ouais, tout
always
ce qu'il
has.
fait,
Nothing has changed.
c'est appuyer
The
sur
longer
le
he
bouton.
spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one.
Mais ça devient grave de plus en plus là.
And I'm trying to tell him this.
Et
That in
j'essaie de
this
lui
world he
expliquer,
can never be
lui
anything
dire que
but
dans
an
ce monde,
observer.
il ne
That
a
as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing
pas
himself.
qu'il reste ici.
But he won't
Il se
listen to
tue
me.
petit
He won't stop.
petit.
Here, watch this. Stanley,
Tenez,
the next
regardez.
time the screen
Tenez, la
asks you to
prochaine
push a
fois que
button,
l'écran vous
do
demande
not
d'appuyer sur
do
une
it.
touche, ne le faites pas.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every
Comment
second he
lui expliquer
remains
d'une
here,
manière
he's electing to
compréhensible
kill
de
himself?
choisir de
How
se
can I get
tuer?
him to see what I see? How can I
Comment
make
lui
him
faire
look at
voir ce que
himself?
je vois? Bizarre.
I suppose I can't, not in the
J'imagine
way
que
I
c'est pas
want him
possible
to.
de
But I don't make
faire
the
comme je
rules.
voudrais.
I simply play to my
Ce n'est
intended
pas moi
purpose,
qui fais
the
les
same as
règles.
Stanley.
Je joue
We're
simplement.
not so different, I suppose.
J'imagine que nous
I'll
sommes pas
try
assez
once
différents.
more to convey all this to
J'essaierai
him.
encore une
I'm
fois de lui
compelled to.
obliger.
I must.
Je suis obligé.
Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll
Peut-être,
see.
peut-être que cette fois il
Maybe
verra.
this time.
Peut-être.
And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And
Oh,
I tried again,
veuillez
and
mourir.
Stanley pushed a button.
Bah non.
And I tried.
Bah non, j'ai pas envie de mourir, wesh. C'est encore la même chose, c'est ça?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Hoping coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Au début, il m'avait demandé de mourir. Si on essayait de mourir, en fait.
But
N'importe.
Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that
On
it
est
had been
bloqué
on the
dans
tip
une
of his
boucle
tongue.
éternelle.
He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons.
Tu peux
I may
arrêter
as
de
well
parler, s'il te
enjoy
plaît?
this while I'm still lucid.
Euh,
So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring
finir.
through space on a magical star field, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in
Mais
my
c'est
head dictating everything that I'm
bizarre.
doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself
J'ai
being
plus envie de
considered by Stanley,
continuer ce
who found it
jeu.
particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley
Je passe
is
dans
as
tes
awake
salles, puis il y
right
a des
now
trucs qui
as
changent.
he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he
Comment
could just...
ça...
He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Ah,
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
ah. Mais en fait, c'est lui qui contrôle le jeu.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Et du coup,
All of his co-workers were gone. What could
Ah.
it mean? Stanley decided to go to the
toujours la
meeting
même
room.
chose.
Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Il y a des portes ouvertes, mais on peut pas y accéder, c'est chiant.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Non, c'est abusé ça. Ah. On aurait dit des yeux et les poignets, frère. C'est abusé ça.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Why?
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Je me suis appuyé sur le bas, mais je voulais pas descendre, moi je voulais monter. La mort.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Oh. On a une possibilité de remonter.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Escape. Escape ou escape? Escape ou escape ou escape?
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley
Non, en
would
fait, je
meet
retourne
his
en arrière.
death.
Aidez-moi, aidez-moi.
But of course, Stanley thought better of it and realized he simply had too much to live for.
Non, perso, non.
Nope,
Mais je
still
sais
on
pas.
board with death?
Faut savoir.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Je sautais. Fire. Me dis pas qu'il y en a un qui sait. Laissez-moi sortir!
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
Laissez-moi sortir! Laissez-moi sortir! Laissez-moi sortir!
He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for
Bon les gars, on va
all.
peut-être pas faire toutes les fins parce qu'il y en a énormément. 5. 5. Si on trouve tous les boutons, peut-être on aura une fin secrète. Hein? D'accord. On a le 1 et le 2 ici. On a le 3 peut-être au-dessus. I'm a new movie. Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
And when at last he found the source of the room's power... Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say, 2 minutes. Ah, now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a
C'est
crisp.
quoi le
I have
con?
to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock, why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you.
Non.
Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment.
Arrête de
But here's a
rigoler.
spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life?
caché, tu
Or
pourras
will you
pas
let
me
it go
tuer.
peacefully? Another choice. Make it count. Or don't. It's all the same to me.
C'est
All a part of the
caché.
joke. And believe me,
Tu pourras
I
pas
will
me
be
tuer.
laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say happily ever
Non.
after.
Oh. Il s'est passé quoi? Changement. Je vais encore me retrouver dans mon bureau. Ah ben super. Bon ben,
All of his
on aurait dû
co-workers were
s'échapper. Hein.
gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Bon les gars, je vais lancer une partie 2. Parce que cette fois-ci, on va essayer de trouver le code.